Four Authors in a Mystery. I'm Rachel Renee, author of The Collie Files.
Hey, I'm Kiersten Modglin, author of The Good Neighbors.
Hi, I'm Emerald O'Brien, and I'm the author of the Knox and Shepherd Mysteries.
Hi, my name is Laurèn Lee, and I'm the author of When Houses Burn.
We just want to thank everyone for their continued support of Four Authors in a Mystery. And we love all the responses that we get and comments and participation in our polls. And we just want to remind you that each of us has the same poll in our groups. But if there's a question that you really want answered, make sure you're voting in all four of them.
Yeah, and speaking of, Carla T's question was the leader in all the polls again. So here's what she wanted us to talk about.
So thank you for the question, Carla. So I think we've all been thinking about it. And when I think about my books and my writing, the different family dynamics that are usually in my books are between parents and children, grandparents and grandchildren, and siblings. I write a lot about those kinds of family relationships, I find. And, you know, outside from like a friendship or a dating kind of scenario. So for family dynamics, I explore those types of relationships. And so the second part of the question about like the unexpected twists that come from within those dynamics or revelations that come from that, I found that through my books, without any spoilers, I like to explore the themes of trust within families and trust within the people who we're closest to. And I believe most like mystery and suspense novels do touch on the theme of trust. Who can you trust, right? I know a lot of authors, and we do definitely at times, if not most of the time, try to make our books more unpredictable. And so the very, you know, that's calling it unpredictable means you can't predict what's going to happen. And, you know, in our lives, we don't really like that very much, but in a book, that's why I think a lot of readers kind of pride themselves on knowing what's going to come next, right? So in our lives, we want to feel safe and secure, and especially with the people who we're closest to. And so for those family dynamics that I explore and the relationships, it's a lot about a lack of trust or a loss of trust between those relations. And sometimes it comes off and it is like a twist and it is a big shock. And sometimes it's just something that, you know, so one of those people in the relationship does to lose the other's trust. So I think everyone can relate to wanting our family to be like our safe place. And oftentimes, though, our family is actually who can hurt us the most. The care between that kind of relationship, no matter what the relationship is, you know, when you love and trust someone, that's when you can get the most hurt. And so I think I like to explore those kinds of dynamics, especially within families where it's supposed to be that safer place. And yeah, I sometimes come to the conclusion in those books that, like, can you ever really trust someone, and can you ever really know someone, even the people who are the closest to you? So I have a lot of fun playing with those themes, and I hope that answers Carla's question for me.
All right, so for me, I have a different type of answer for this question about family dynamics in books. A lot of my books do have some complicated relationships between families, but the one to me that I actively focused on and really concentrated on in the book is the family dynamic in my book called Running in Circles. And I might have mentioned that one before in a previous video, but that is one that I was partially inspired to write after reading Mindhunter by John Douglas. And to do that, well, that book is about a serial killer, so I really wanted to accurately portray a typical serial killer's background as done in studies by John Douglas and Robert Ressler. So I really dove into those kind of family dynamics. just about their study that they did and the similarities between 36 convicted predators and how they grew up, and how, the question nature versus nurture, maybe how their backgrounds and their family life could have influenced them in their adulthood. And from one of those books, I have some statistics that I wanted to share with you all because they're pretty interesting. So in the interviews conducted by John Douglas and Robert Ressler of the FBI, who are kind of the forefathers of criminal profiling, they conducted interviews with 36 convicted predators who were involved in some kind of sexual homicide, something of that nature. And here are some statistics from that book. Of the 36 people interviewed, all of them were men. 70% of their families had a history of alcohol abuse. Over half of the families had a history of psychiatric disorders. 42% of the offenders had a history of physical abuse. 75% of the offenders had a history of psychological abuse. And 47% of those men had fathers leave their family before the age of 12. So while we still need to keep in mind that everyone is responsible for their own actions, there were a lot of common themes in family dynamics from research that I had done, and I tried to implement those into my own story as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And just to the point of those statistics, especially speaking to like mental health or different disorders, it's also interesting because in the history of the family, as we know, so much more research has been done on mental health and more findings. So you could even say that those statistics are even just based on the limited knowledge that they had of like that a person could be diagnosed back then and like what kind it is. So like it could even be higher percentages too that they just don't know about. So
Right.
That's a lot in common, yeah.
I also researched a little bit, trying to decide on how I wanted to answer this question. And I looked at it a little bit differently as well. So I found a study that was done by the FBI. It was the most recent one that I found was in 2011. So who knows how often they actually do these things. But in 2011, there were 12,664 murder cases. And of all of those, 54% of the murders were committed by someone that the person knew.
Mm.
And of that, 24.8% was by a family member.
Mm.
And so I think looking at my books and other stories in our genre, you kind of see those same kind of things. Like, is it someone that the person knew? Like, we're always wondering, is it someone that you knew? And that's always the first place we look when we're reading a book. When we're writing a book, we think, oh, should it be like the husband, or should it be, a sibling, or, whatever. So a lot of things kind of stem from that. And so I thought it was interesting to kind of look at those actual statistics and see in real life how they matched up to what we read or what we write. And also it said that females are the ones who are more likely to be murdered by a family member or someone that they know. And then I kind of looked at my books, and I thought it was interesting because I didn't look at these statistics before I wrote my books. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was interesting. I don't really want to give anything away if you haven't read my books, but if you do read them, you should kind of take a look at that and see if how I have written them follows the general statistics of what is actually happening out in the world.
So for mine, I focus more on marriage than I do like parent-child relationship. I still have the parent-child and then, sibling relationships in all my books. But one thing that just about all my books have in common is that the main characters the main mystery centers around a marriage. And to me, I find those books very interesting. I think there are so many secrets that can be hidden, within, the four walls of a marriage and, behind closed doors and all of that. I think that, on a very sinister level, there can be just crazy things that go on, but then just on like a very human level. I mean, who knows us, better than our spouses? I mean, our parents know us, our siblings know us, but I think, at least in my life, and I mean, it seems that your spouse knows you the best. They're the person that's with you every day. They see you at your absolute worst, and I think, most people can relate to those types of relationships, whether you're married or engaged or, dating. Everyone's been in a relationship with, someone that knows all their secrets. And I mean, to me, that's always been what's super interesting, is being able to read or write about marriages and, the secrets that are hidden inside of them. And so, yeah, like Emerald said, that's you're supposed to be your safe place. But then, to Rachel's point, that can also be like your undoing. That can be, the end. So it's rather than like a family that you're born into that you don't necessarily have a choice, like your spouse is who you choose. And so I just have always found it so interesting that can also be the person that, ruins everything for you, or, ends your life, or, is at the end the one that protects you the most. There's just so many different dynamics that can be within a marriage, and I'm just fascinated by all of it.
Right, especially because when you first begin a relationship with someone or decide to commit to someone, not marriage or like getting engaged, or just be committed to that person, you're never thinking that they're going to hurt you. You're making that decision actually because you think the opposite. So it's one of those things where you're hoping and thinking something when the statistics show that, it's actually someone close to you is sometimes more likely to hurt you. So
exactly. And it's, it is like someone that you've chosen to bring in your life. Maybe they weren't, the best choice, and then that's at the end of the day, that's the choice that you made. And so I think that that's super interesting. Like I said, with family, you don't necessarily have that choice. So pretty cool, or not cool, but creepy.
Really interesting, yeah. And also, I bet you guys can agree that in mysteries, when we're writing them, I think it's like for spouse or parent or sibling or whoever it is, I think a lot of times when you're trying to think like, okay, who did this? Those are people who have the strongest motive. Mm-hmm. Because they're going to know a secret that we can't let the reader know yet, right? That they're trying to hide, or they're upset, they want revenge, they're jealous, they've been abused. Like, there's so many different things, but I think motivation is the strongest there. And also maybe sometimes readers can find that the most believable. Whereas say it was, your friend from whenever and you haven't seen them in a long time, and then that's the person who murdered you. Sure, we can like connect the dots to that, and it can be really shocking, and those are great, I think, because you really don't see it coming. But perhaps most believable is a person very close. Yeah
And in marriages, like, I mean, there are so many emotions, and they're always heightened because you're always right there with them. You don't get breaks on the weekends like you do your coworkers, or you only see your parents maybe once a month or whatever. Like, you're always right there in pretty close quarters. And so it's like every, emotion that you've got going is, being fueled by everything your spouse does. And so it's kind of crazy.
I don't know about you ladies, but I think I'm going to have my boyfriend sleep in the other room tonight.
I know.
I love it.
I would going back to my statistics for just a second there. So like out of the 24% of people that were murdered by a family member, 36% of those people were murdered by a spouse. Mm-hmm. So going back to your couples that you generally write about. So it's interesting, to kind of see our fictional world, along with reality.
Yeah, we don't stray too far from it, unfortunately.
No, I'm glad you guys brought those statistics. That was really interesting.
Yeah. You came more prepared than me.
I was just trying to figure out how in the world I'm going to answer this question. There was something else that I just thought of too, and we don't have to, but not all, like when I think of family dynamics, not all of them are related, like in my Savannah PD series, I mainly focus on my group of detectives. So they're like a family. So they're not, related in the sense that they share blood, but they're together with each other every single day and they're working really tough things. And so just that interesting, dynamic there to see another side of like what family could look like and how that could possibly play into this whole thing.
Right.
For sure. I know the two, like my Knox and Shepherd mysteries, Maddig and Knox and Grace Shepherd are sisters, but they're not blood sisters. They're sisters by, a bond they formed and share from their foster home where they met. So, but they are to each other more family than anyone else. So it's true. Chosen family can and those dynamics really play into it. So I can see how you explored that more because that's more of what you write.
Mm-hmm.
I know in a lot of my books, they start out with, you're focused on like a husband and a wife or, a very tight-knit family. And then throughout the book, the wife or the husband or whatever ventures out and, makes friends that help them, deal with whatever, trauma has gone on. And by the end of it, those, people are closer to being family than necessarily the, husband and wife or, sisters or whatever. So it's definitely, the family you choose is just as important as the family you're born with.
All right, if you're still watching, then thank you. And we have a special giveaway for you. So for this video, I am giving away a signed copy of Little Girl Lost, which is part of the Crimson Fall series. And these lovely ladies also have books in that series. So to win one signed copy, a random winner will be drawn, and you must like, share, and subscribe to this video series. You can like any of our posts when we share the video. You can share any of them. It doesn't have to be from me particular. And make sure you subscribe. So we will do all that, and then one lucky winner in the United States will win a signed copy. If someone outside of the United States wins, I will send an ebook for you to still have.
So now we thought we'd play a little game. We have some fun one-off questions that we thought you might enjoy to help you get to know us better. And we'll call it like a speed round, although you don't have to be that fast, but try. So the first question is, do you like to write series or standalones?
I think I've written more books in a series, so I guess I'll say series.
I like standalones. I get really bored with the series and I tend to jump around ideas and I feel kind of boxed in when I write series, so I like standalones.
I don't know if I can pick. I have 2 series now. I'm working on another one, but I also have a good amount of standalones, so I guess it's just how the mood strikes.
And I'm kind of the same way. I've got a bit of both. I have more series than standalones. However, I do have a standalone idea I'm really excited to explore. So it just depends on the mood, yeah.
All right. Tacos or pizza?
Pizza.
Tacos.
Pizza.
Tacos.
All right. Do you like mysteries that end with a cliffhanger or case closed?
I think it depends on how it's written. If it's a good cliffhanger where you're excited to imagine what could have happened, I think that's good. I think more in true crime stories, I like a case closed just because I like the finality of it. But I like both just depending on the story and how it's written.
I think for me, I like case closed. It doesn't have to be like tied up in a neat little bow, but I don't want a huge cliffhanger. I want most of the, the ends tied.
I'm going to say case closed too. I'd rather have case closed. I don't mind a cliffhanger every now and again, but and I probably wouldn't mind cliffhanger if I know that there's a book already waiting for me and I don't have to wait forever to get to the what happens next part.
For series, I don't mind a cliffhanger, but for standalones, I like the case closed, but it's cool to have things left open to your interpretation too.
This is the big one. Very important. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee.
Tea. Oh, I'm the only tea person, although I am drinking an iced coffee currently, so.
I like tea. I just prefer coffee.
Yeah, I love both. Coffee is usually my go-to.
I love both too. Okay, do you prefer whodunits or psychological thrillers?
Thrillers.
Psychological thrillers, yeah.
And I like both depending on my mood.
We're not very decisive here.
I know.
Just on food. We know what we like to eat.
Yes, exactly.
But not to drink.
No.
No.
All right. Are you early birds or night owls?
Night owl. I'm not an early bird by any means.
Early bird. It's past my bedtime actually right now.
I'm a night owl right now, but I always flip-flop, like depending on the year. Yeah.
I'm an early bird. Always have been. Sadly, I probably always will be.
All right, scary movie or comedy?
Scary, always.
Scary.
I'm going to say comedy. I love a good comedy. I like scary movies, but I don't know. I need something to lighten the mood.
So I like the psychological thriller type movies. I don't like horror movies. So I like the psychological thriller better than comedy, but I really like comedy too. But if it's between horror and comedy, then comedy for sure.
I'm going to change that about you.
You're like the horror guru, so you're going to have to.
You will.
All right. Would you rather be a secondary character in the last movie you saw or a secondary character in the last book that you read? Name the book or the movie.
All right, so I will go first. So the last movie that I saw was that horrible movie on Netflix that just came out with Brenda Song in it. What's the name of that? It was it was a psychological thriller, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's horrible. And the last book I read was Here to Stay by Mark Edwards, and they were both. I mean, that was like my favorite book by him, but they were both horrible plots to be involved in. So I'm choosing neither, but if I had to choose, I would say the last book.
So the last movie I saw was just the other night, and I rewatched My Best Friend's Wedding. And so I'd be a secondary character in that.
So the last book I read, I guess I actually listened to. I listened to It's Not What It Looks Like by Molly Burke, who's a famous YouTuber. And the last movie I saw, I don't watch movies very often, but I watched It. So I probably wouldn't want to be a character in it. So maybe I can be Molly Burke's friend in real life.
The last book I read was The Shining, and the last movie, my husband and I actually went out to a movie the other night, and we went to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't know. I kind of feel the same. I don't know that I'd want to be in either one, but maybe the movie, because, Brad Pitt was in it, and, maybe I could just hang out with him on the set.
So, podcasts or audiobooks?
Podcasts for me. I don't like audiobooks. I can't focus on them long enough.
Podcasts for me too. I don't listen to audiobooks. However, I used to and I really loved it, but now I'm all about the podcasts.
I will plead the fifth and not answer this because I love them both equally. I'm always listening to an audiobook and I love many podcasts, so I'm not going to answer.
Yeah, I like both. I probably listen to more audiobooks. We do that in the car instead of music and stuff. So I guess I'll go with audiobooks because that's what I listen to more of, but we do listen to podcasts some too. Now we just want to tell you a little bit about what we're working on now.
So for me, I am writing about midway through a standalone thriller that I'm excited to release, hopefully in September.
I am working on a new detective series, which is something that I haven't written before. I usually write either psychological thriller or more crime, but this is the first time I'm busting out the detective hat, and I'm hoping to release the first book in that series maybe in December. So keep an eye out for it.
I am writing the 4th book in my Knox and Shepherd mystery series. And only my reader group knows what it's called, but now you guys do too. It's called The One Who Watches. And I'm really excited about it. It's going well, but I've got to keep working and I'm on a deadline. And it should be out later this fall.
And I am working on the 2nd book in my Coley Files series. It's a CIA series. And I am closing in on the end. I cannot wait. So, yay.
And the cover is beautiful. We saw it today. We got a sneak peek.
Thank you.
The perks of the author fam.
Exactly.
So we hope you enjoyed our speed round, and we all want to know your answers to the questions that we discussed. And if you have any questions that you are dying to ask us, leave your suggestions in the comments below, and we may feature them in our next speed round.
All right, so that is the end of episode 3. It's kind of crazy that we're 3 episodes in, but thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing to our channel and all of that good stuff, always coming back and supporting us. Don't forget, if we didn't talk about what you wanted us to talk about this week, just visit any of our author pages. You can leave your suggestions. We'll have pre-made posts on all 4 of our pages, and then you'll be able to vote. We need your suggestions in by the 18th, so that's this Sunday. Get those in, and then you'll be able to go into any of our groups and vote. And like we talked about earlier, you can vote in all 4 polls to better your chances of having us talk about your topic. Thank you again for watching. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, like and subscribe, and follow us all on social media. Don't forget about the giveaway. So be sure to enter, and we can't wait to announce the winner next video. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.